voice of growth, mastering the mind and market.
And I don't think Wall Street is either of those. I've been saying now it's repurposing, not reinventing. No, working hard is fun, and you can make fun from it. Say yes to the exploration of it. What was my goal? Set the goal and meet the goal. And then meet that goal and then set another goal higher. Give back, work hard, and don't take yourself so seriously.
So Ron, tell me, you've navigated two major worlds, the worlds of Wall Street and the worlds of Hollywood. What led you to be at those crossroads?
Well, I think I started out with out of New York City, with the whole concept of I'm going to make it on Wall Street. That was the only world that existed, and from that, when you get to some of these places that you think, especially as you're younger, are where you want to be, you realize this may not be your passion. So that's what sort of led me to understanding different paths and different directions, industries. So even before the film, there were a number of startups and technology things, and you just happen upon different industries. So always wanted to do something that was legacy and creative, and I don't think Wall Street is either of those. You can be, but not usually. It's more about transactions, power, and greed. So when I saw the opportunity, and it wasn't so overt, it was much more subtle. It just and it's in the book, the story, but just so happened to be in the setting of filmmakers, and I got approached, and I came up with the idea of I can try to do this. And I think for me, it's I think one of the keys to transitioning or trying new things, and I've been saying now it's repurposing, not reinventing. So,
Okay.
and in that line, I mean, what are my skill sets that I could apply to any industry, job, life, even event? And for me, it happened to be a few things. One is project management. I can visualize everything as a project, figure out the end goal, and figure out the steps, critical paths, and everything else to get there. Second is I don't mind hard work or working hard, and I actually enjoy it. And it's really difficult to tell my kids today who think it's live your best life is not working hard.
Right.
And I'm like, no, working hard is fun, and you can make fun from it. As long as you like what you're doing, even if you don't, you just got to make certain games. And I also I pick things up pretty quickly. So, and I enjoy learning that way. Um, so I think those skill sets together could apply anywhere.
Yeah. So this is a really good segue, Ron, because you've recently written a book, and this book has some principles which I want you to kind of describe. But even before we get to the content of the book, what was the reason that you decided to write the book?
So I've been helping these probably up to 100 friends, associates, friends of friends do this, follow these principles, and help them with their career path. And I was at brunch maybe 3 years ago now, almost 3 years ago, and some of the people knew me, some of the people didn't. That's why I like networking with people. Some you know, some you don't know. And somebody asked me the same question, and I started telling the story of film and this, and one of the women there said, I cannot, she stood up and said, I can't listen to this story anymore. Why don't you write a book? And I said, what? Stop the conversation. I said, how would I do that? And she goes, well, I have a friend who was a published author who was looking for somebody to help. I'll connect you, but just please don't tell this story again. So that's how this all came about. And again, I always say yes isn't jump into every opportunity, but it's the first step. So saying yes was that day was say yes to the exploration of it. Then I called, I did my research. We started seeing if they can get an outline together. So I hired her to help me with an outline. And then the outline seemed pretty good. What was the angle? And got about a year into it. And it was more of a self memoir book. And I wasn't going to self publish. So I left it alone, dropped it. And then about 6 months later, I was at a party, a small dinner party. And the guy next to me started talking. We started talking. Um, And he asked about what I was working, what passion I had. And I said, "Well, I had this book, but I put it down." He said, "Well, what's it about?" And then he had a friend who does publishing with self-help kind of angle to it.
Yeah.
He said, "This would be perfect for her." Went to her. We just changed it to sort of the principles, resorting things, kept the storylines the same, but moved into more of helping people with the career. What the book was intentioned to do from that brunch.
Very nice. So the book is it's Say Yes to Success, 12 Principles to Catapult a Career You Love at Any Stage of Life. So I'm really interested in that last piece and why that's so compelling for our audience to understand why at any stage of life. That seems like an interesting phrase.
Could be, because I'm turning 59, and I'm already looking to the next one after the book was that now and do the courses and the motivational speaking and maybe some summits and some workshops, maybe even one on one. But uh, I'm already thinking about what's next, and it's really interesting now. A lot of the people of my age are saying, "What do we do, to at this stage of our life, at this stage of our careers? Do we just finish out, retire, and get our pensions or get our 401ks? Do we try something new? Is it too late?" And the idea now is not too late, and it's actually more fun now, I think, because I think AI is giving everybody older, uh, or with experience a chance at and again, repurposing themselves because what AI doesn't give you today is they can do the grunt work. They can't interpret, and they don't know experiences and the anomalies. So if you experience in any of those fields, whatever field it is, you can now use AI to help you change or pivot a little bit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have a lot of friends across the age landscape. I do some mentorings. I just got off a meeting with some students that are in their early 20s. And then I have friends that I hang out with that are in their late 70s, early 80s across the board. And I had a conversation with a guy the other day that you'll probably find interesting. So this guy he's 84 and he has been making wine, brewing whiskey. He basically started the whole wine industry here in Arizona, which, yeah, there's a wine industry here, believe it or not. And so we were just talking, and he's lived 4 lives, right? He did a lot of things in the military. He had a whole career afterwards in mining, and then he got into this like winemaking world and whatever. And I asked him like, "What's next? Are you just hanging up the spurs?" And he basically told me to f off. He's got a lot of life left in him, and he's going to perfect a new kind of distilling process. So that really gives me a lot of momentum to, why I wanted to have this conversation with you because sometimes we say no to a lot of things and we get stuck in these ruts. So, what are some of the principles that are discussed in your book that can really help somebody understand that maybe it's somebody who's stuck, maybe help them to go in a new direction?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. One of the principles is the first one is passion. Find out what you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be outside of what you're doing, but it has to be outside your even company. But it has to be something different because you wouldn't be in a rut if you were passionate about it. So find something. It could be adjacent. It could be completely new that actually gets you excited. Um, I think the second thing is quickly understand that most people, and even in your inside voice, is gonna say, "No, you can't do it. You're not good enough, or you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, it's too much work, you don't have the time." You gotta block those out, and then I talk about focus. You gotta really focus in on doing it, and I think the misconception people have is that they have to reinvent or dive right in and put one down for the other. And I look at it like you don't dive into the deep end if you don't know how to swim. You take lessons, you learn, then eventually you take your test and you go into the deep end. So I think especially again today's with the world, the technology, social media, you can get some experiences and try some things out without leaving your core job. So you don't have to come out of your total comfort zone, but yet you can start what I call sampling into different things. And then when you get into something you like, you don't even know who you don't know or who you know that's in that field. And if you start looking out through your contacts, your social media, you'll realize that, for me, when I went to film, I I connect with 4 people who I knew socially, had no idea what they did, and they're all deep into film and
Really? Wow.
or the back end of film, and they taught me. So I think it's, you don't know, keep a broad network, keep contacts, even if they're not in your industry, broaden it, don't keep it so narrow, and try things. You can also try things, and I've been saying this a lot with, philanthropy. Any of these big organizations, so say you're an accounting, you've been an accountant all your life, but you really were into, marketing, but you didn't have any courses. Well, you know, United Way, Special Olympics, they do marketing. You can always volunteer as a marketing group. You don't have to volunteer into the day-to-day or fundraising. They have a back office too, or vice versa if you're marketing, wanna try account. So you can get some of that experience, give back at the same time, and see if you like it.
Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
No, no, I haven't.
So the Dunning-Kruger effect, and I'll explain it to you, and I wanna get your take on how somebody might get past that. So the idea of the Dunning-Kruger effect is that the less you know about something, the more you're confident about your abilities about it, and then it sharply goes down. So say, for instance, you take up learning how to play the guitar. So you learn how to play the guitar and, 3 months in, you're like, "I got this," and you have this, like, overconfidence about you, and then somebody hands you some Segovia or something very, like, hardcore, and then you realize you don't know anything about guitar playing at all, and your confidence goes down to the ground, and then it takes some time, to basically go through and become a true expert. And so how would you say somebody in that framework of passion that initially thinks they know a lot about what they're doing and then falls off that cliff, how would you help them get back on track?
Well, I'd say a couple of things. You don't have to be the NBA all-star. You can everybody has a place, and you can make your experience, value add. Find what your value add is. You don't have to conquer everything and be the expert. So, when I was training for the marathon, and I was, out of shape, getting ready, an old grandmother passed me by, and she cruised, laughing, and I could have given up. So I kinda look at that effect, right? I thought I could do this running, I'm really getting good. This 90-year-old grandmother runs by me as if I was standing still, and I'm like, "Oh, boy, what am I gonna do?" But I actually took that as a challenge, not as a negative. So I think if you turn the frown upside down and say, I can make that a challenge, and, I didn't have to win the race. I didn't have to be the expert, but what was my goal? Set the goal and meet the goal, and then meet that goal and then set another goal higher. So I think also that's, trying to say to your example, the guitar, if that piece came along and it's so out of your range, I'd say, all right, what's the next piece up? And let me build. Now becomes the ultimate goal, not necessarily something that makes me downhearted or give up or
Yeah,
even
I think
slow
that's one
down.
of the
Actually, it would make me speed up.
yeah. I think that's one of the hacks, if you will. This term hacks is used a lot right now, and some people like the word, some people hate the word. I kind of think that there's a place for it. And so, with respect to hacks, I tell my kids that look, whatever you decide to do, at the very beginning, you're going to feel like a fool. You're going to feel like you don't know what you're doing. You're going to feel embarrassed, but you just got to burst through that because at the other end of that, you're going to have some level of realization that, you know what, I can do this, or you're going to have confidence about it. You're going to and start to enjoy it. Like when my kid first started doing tennis, he was, I kind of pushed back a little bit, and now he's like dying to play. I gave him a new racket for Christmas and all this stuff. So, how do you deal with people that surround that person and are naysayers? How, to use the example of the guitar, somebody who might say, "Look, you're never going to learn how to play this riff. You're never going to learn how to, what you're always going to have naysayers. Of course, we're our own worst enemies, but you also have family. You're going to have, somebody who maybe wants to start a business, and you have people say, "No, why are you doing that for? You've got a degree in accounting. Why the hell would you ever start a business?" How do you deal with that, Ron?
Well, it's doubt management. And you just got to block it out and have internal strength. Um, you can do it, and everybody, no matter what. Even when I wrote this book, I had naysayers. So after, even though I've been successful doing all these different careers, it came to the point for the book, and everybody's like, "Well, you're not a writer, all right? So I got somebody to help me do writing." But, your stories aren't gonna be interesting, how are you gonna make it work? Do you gotta market? So I just think you've gotta understand that they always are gonna exist, internal and external naysayers. Block your voice out, focus, and put up like I always say, it's like a racehorse. They have blinders. So some don't, some do. So get a pair of blinders on and don't listen, block out all the naysayers and focus straight ahead. At again, finish line. And then one race, then set a higher goal. So I also don't think you could, you got to be realistic in your goals, but keep striving to attain them. And then each victory, use it as a way to say to naysayers in your own head or whatever that you can do this, and now go to the next step, next rung.
Who would you say are your ideal readers? Who would benefit from this book, and why should they read the book? What are they going to get from it?
So I think anybody who's either contemplating a career change or trying to figure out which career they want to go to. And especially, the third group would be the people coming towards the end of their, initial career, 40s, 50s, who are thinking about what to do, how to wind down, and I say wind up the next phase of what you're doing. And I think what they'll get out of it is examples throughout of these 12 principles, and it's sort of like 12 steps. You can't skip really many of them. And within the book now, we've got examples, and there's even a workbook that you get with the book. So you can fill in as you go through, or read it once and go through it again, and fill in for yourself what those things are. And I think you'll get a path and a strategy, a plan. And I think that's also helpful. I think people might try things, but I think one or two of these steps might be hard for them, whether it's that management step, maybe they don't have the confidence step, the focus. And throughout the book, there's just real examples. I lay it out there a little bit, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's actually a really good segue because one of the questions I have for you here is give us a time in your life that was, I won't use the term rock bottom, but was really challenging for you. You had a lot of things happening, and give us an example of what that might have been.
Well, I think it's the example is the dot-com bubble. So we shot for the dot-com. We had great ideas, and they still are. They were ahead of their time a little bit. Technology wasn't there, and we grew. as fast as we could. We knew the window might close, but I had invested a ton of money into it, my own money, I always do. And when the bubble crashed and we didn't finish that raise, you look at it and say, that's pretty rock bottom. I didn't let everybody know how bad it was, but it was pretty bad. But I two concepts that I held to that are in the book as well is I still have my core strengths, and I didn't burn any bridges. So I went back to consulting, which was always there for me as a go-to industry, go-to business to build up my wealth again. So it's not about money because at that point I had none, I had negative, but and again I had kids at the time. I had a house, I had a mortgage, I had cars. So it wasn't like a trust fund kid, and it was down. But I went to the investor who lost the most money, and I said, well, "What do you think?" And he said, "Learn from this. The You'll be more successful now than ever if you could take this and use it like sergeant stripes, and you've got your badge of courage. Get out there and turn it around,
Wow.
and next time make it better." And he said, "And include me on the next investment."
Wow, that's remarkable. That you don't see that a lot. I think it's hard to do that sometimes because we feel that we've let people down. Obviously, the market shift. Obviously, things happen, but coming clean like that, obviously, in your situation, was the best thing to do. What about on the other side? What about a time in your career where maybe you were riding high on something? Any stories you can share on
I
that
learned
domain?
from the past, and I said, "All right, now I know what to do." Was the '08 crash of the financial services, right? So I had a my second consulting company, and I started to build it up, and all of a sudden the crash happens, right? So what do you do? That time I learned from the past, and I said, "All right, now I know what to do. I'm going to go ahead and figure out what caused the crash and consult on that and
Mhm.
turn it into a real opportunity for growth." And went to London, interest rate swap options, and I had known that, got people who experts in that, started consulting practice for that specific item, and reworked with the London Stock Exchange. So I turned it into a really ver- very very successful venture quickly.
One of the things we talk with our clients and uh, people that we work with is the idea of having enough runway and enough confidence to pivot when you need to pivot. How do you feel? So there's like two schools of thought, right? There's the school of thought that says burn the boats, go all in, and don't look backwards, just jump in both feet, burn the boats. And then there's the other side of the camp that says the more Uch approach, right? You're doing some level of maybe a side hustle to begin with. You build some momentum. Do you have any preference on any of those two sides there?
I'm definitely the latter. Um, but so I'm definitely I call it sampling in the book. I think you sample, you keep your core, but when you find it, then you go all in. So I think it's a combination, but I think to start the fire, you need to make sure there's a good flame that you're happy with it, and you're going to be content, and that you're sure that the end goal now is not just possible, but will fulfill you. So it's not just about can I do it? It's about is the end what you thought it was going to be? It will be, and will you be happy doing it? Then, if that's the case, then you go all in and focus and really hit the gas. So burn the boats. So I think it's a combination, but I think you need to make sure it's right first, because if you go too soon, I think that that's how some catastrophic errors could happen.
Yeah, I like that analogy of you got to make sure you have enough fire to start or enough wood to start the fire to eventually burn the boat. So I like that analogy. I've been on kind of both sides of that myself. I've been on jumping in with both feet, and luckily I landed safely. Although 6 years later, I had a catastrophic event where I had to close that business. And then on the other side, the more Uch approach, which You called it sampling and all that. I think there's a lot of value to that as well. Um, so let's go back a little bit to understand the many pieces and facets of who you are. You've done real estate development. You were in tech in during the dot-com bubble, or is it something else?
Was tech and sort of entrepreneurism.
Video and Hollywood time. You've been in Wall Street. You're now an author. And what else have you done in your career?
This is so many jobs that don't even make the pages of the book. I had a fishing business in Naples, Florida. I played poker for a while on the tour. So this is a number of different things to hobbies to again sampling, trying to make money out of those things as well. Um, but I did some accounting work as well for some financial industries companies. So I think and a bunch of startups throughout the way that don't make the pages. I was a CIO of a messaging company out of London. Um, so this is some interesting different things, but not all will make the pages. But I was trying to really focus on the ones where the yes either got you into it, help you pivot to start it, or help you be successful in it.
Yeah, I love that idea of the yes. It reminds me of so many stories of people saying yes when almost everybody else would say no. The Richard Bransons of the world, the others that when asked, can you do this? They said, yeah, I can do it. And then they go and they build it in the back there while they're figuring it out. So I really love that idea. Um, are you looking at doing a bit of a book tour when you release the book? First of all, has it released yet?
It's released. We're doing most of the marketing out for the new year, starting in January. Sort of a new year, new career angle of it, as well as maybe down working on a an online summit for February 5th with different speakers and different everybody taking a chapter, sort of explaining it, and then doing some. Probably, I don't think it's more of the book tour than it is more of maybe, going to, seminars or be part of other people's seminars and do like a course as well, or one-on-one sessions for people that like I did for like 100 of my friends or associates on what value they have. And also it's not a yes for everybody, even new careers. So, I had friends, you can't go from banking to startup entrepreneur necessarily. Not everybody's got the skill set or has the bandwidth or just is meant to be. So you have to talk all that through a little bit and still be able to find a new road, but maybe it's not the one they originally thought.
I get that. I get that. There's a question I ask all my guests, a couple questions. And if I handed you a magic telephone and you could have a conversation and tell an 18, we'll say 19-year-old Ron, what would you tell that 19-year-old Ron?
I think I would tell him to that the the road will end up right. So and so and obviously what worked and what didn't work, but that the path's good. I mean, I'm happy with the way the path worked, and sometimes the road not working, different experiences. So just keep it up.
That's good. And if we flip that channel and we ask an 89-year-old Ron, what would you ask of that 89-year-old version of yourself?
Probably the advice I didn't give the 18-year-old, which would have been, I'd ask the 80 or 90-year-old, which is the one, if I had to do one, which would be the one or two to be the most successful for that person.
Yeah, that's interesting. And how do you define success while we're on that subject, Ron?
That's why I reversed the question. I think success is individual actually. So each individual, it's not necessarily monetary. So for the person, it could just be happiness, could be how much they philanthropy or how much they give back and how much they help. What individually they learned, how they raise their children, if they have children or family, or siblings. Um, so there's not one answer for that. For me, it's a combination of all of it, and part of the book is to give back, help people with their careers or their choices, and I'll tell you. So the book has been out since a couple weeks now, and I did get a few people who never knew me, didn't even never just came across it, and it has helped. So some people, you get it's also interesting because for film, I was always on the other side of the camera. So, being on this side where it's your story, it definitely is sensitive, emotionally. So some people just like motherhood, apple pie, but I think they're not reading deep enough. Or again, not everything's right for everybody, but it has already helped some people. So for me, that's already a success.
That's great. Yeah, I can see that. I'm built in a very similar way that I think that impact and influence are in their own right a level of success. When I help a client, when I help a friend, when I help somebody go through something by sharing my experience, my thoughts, and my insights, and they reach the other side of it with success in their book, I feel like I've accomplished
It's
my good deed for the day. It's a
exactly.
great feeling.
It is a great feeling. So I think part of the book is to try to get that. I've done it for so many of my friends or their friends or associates or kids. So if I can help other people, it's great.
That's really good, Ron. Well, for the final question here, what is the central message that you want to send to the world? If you could somehow broadcast in this moment, broadcast a message to the world. It could be based on the book. It could be based on anything else. What is that message you would give to everybody?
Give back, work hard, and don't take yourself so seriously, and be tolerant.
I love that. I love that. You know, this podcast is about the mind and the market, both. The market being all things business, all things strategy, the mind being mindset. And we rely a lot on, at least on the Perfectory side, my consulting business, and the Voice of Growth podcast. We talk a lot about stoicism and some of those things about tolerance. That's one of the virtues is it's not talked about a lot. Everybody wants to have an opinion and they want to be louder than others. And today is even worse than any other time in probably a long time. Where if someone doesn't ascribe to my way of thinking, I demonize them. I put them down, and it's a horrible way to live.
Right. I listened to a few of your podcasts as well, and honestly, really are mind opening and really deep thoughts, and not just for listening at the time. I always look at things. Does it make you think later about it? And I don't know if I told you the one, where sort of along your question lines, but uh, when you die or where you go, and what you want to be remembered as, and where you know all the different things about related to that. It's a really really good one. So
Yeah,
I
thank
think you're
you.
doing a great
Appreciate that.
job.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for having me as well.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation, Ron. I've learned a lot about you. I'm intrigued. I want to get a copy of the book. I want to read it. And I love to pass things like that along. I have a whole bookcase here where I have duplicates, triplicates of books because people come in and I'm like, take that. It's going to help you out. So
It's great.
appreciate your time, Ron.
Thank you, and get it on Amazon or ownyoursuccessnow.com.
All right. Well, look it up.
Thank you
Thanks
very
again.
much.
Cheers.